Achieving a gorgeous grin from home isn't a total mystery with Bite Clear aligners. Just don't be surprised if all of your sleuthing friends start asking, "What's your secret?" Begin by ordering your at-home impression kit today for only $14.95. Bite Clear aligners are doctor-directed and delivered to your door. Treatment costs thousands less than braces. Plus, they offer flexible financing, accept eligible insurance, and you can pay with your HSA FSA. Get 80% off your impression kit when you use code WONDERY at Byte.com. That's BYTE.com. Start your confidence journey today with Byte.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room? It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system. If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served. Hi, I'm Detective Dave. I'm Detective Dan. Together we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood. So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished. From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th. We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
And welcome back to Scarred for Life, the podcast where we open up old wounds by looking back at the films that scared us as kids. I'm Terry.
And I'm Mary Beth.
June is Pride Month, so each week our guest will be a member of the LGBTQ horror community and will bring with them a movie that traumatized them as a child.
This week, our guest is the multi-talented Drew Phillips. She's the producer for Dead for Filth, a podcast, as well as a writer, director, producer, cinematographer, and artist. Through her design company, Sister Hyde Design, she's also worked with companies such as the Criterion Collection, Kino Lorber, Altered Innocence, and 88 Films to create iconic images, theatrical one-sheets, records, and more. Welcome to the show, Drew.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Yay!
How do you have time?
Yeah. Are you tired?
The secret is I don't sleep.
Yes. That seems to be what it is. It's whenever someone's like, how do you do it? I'm like, I just don't really sleep that much.
I was like, ooh, quarantine's going to be great. I'm going to sleep all day. I'm going to watch so many movies, and maybe I'll do some writing. And it was like, nope, I'm just designing all day long, and then I go to sleep at 5 a.m. watching Notting Hill. Anyway.
Honestly, though, that sounds nice. I mean...
That was yesterday. It was good.
That sounds great.
That does sound
Notting
good, actually.
Hill. Oh my god. A classic. So, Drew, how did you get into horror?
Okay, so I was a very latchkey kind of kid who watched movies all the time, but I was very turned off by horror movies, and I was like, ran out of the room screaming as a kid when we saw like Raiders of the Lost Ark and their faces melted off, and even when the skeleton dropped down at the beginning, I couldn't handle it. I could not handle those things. However, at some point, I started getting into, action movies and art house movies in like middle school and high school when I had no friends. And I was like,
Same.
ooh, these are really, really fun. Maybe there's some older horror movies I feel more comfortable with, because I liked Young Frankenstein, and I felt comfortable in the like black and white Universal monster space.
Okay.
So I found myself tiptoeing into like Eyes Without a Face, and then like maybe a little bit of Carnival of Souls and Eraserhead, and then maybe I'll watch a Cronenberg movie. And then when I got to college, because I went to film school in Chicago, there still is a series that they do in October every year called the 24-Hour Massacre.
Is that a Music Box?
It's not the Music Box. The Music Box is Music Box of the Dead.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. I lived in Chicago for a while, so it was like...
Best.
Yeah, just best.
The Massacre is less well known. It's like
My bad.
an hour out on the train.
Oh, what neighborhood is it in?
I don't remember, but it's at the Portage
cool.
Theater usually.
Okay.
Which, if you know it, is from like the 1920s. It has no air conditioning or heating. And this is October in Chicago. And you're in there for 24 hours. and with whatever concessions they have. And there's usually vendors at the first like couple hours of it. And it's 24 hours of horror movies, 35 digital. They always start with a silent film with an organ score. And I just gathered some friends together first year of college because I was like, look, the flyer says they're showing Day of the Dead and they're showing a couple other movies that we've heard about that we love and want to see again. And it's only $20 to go see like all these movies for an entire day. And we don't even know what else they're going to play. And we were not prepared. They showed, oh my God, they showed The Haunted Palace with Vincent Price.
Oh.
They showed Argento's Tenebrae.
Oh.
They showed the original Black Christmas. They showed Trick or Treat from a couple years ago. They showed Twins of Evil, the Hammer lesbian vampire film.
Oh.
Fuck yeah.
They showed Toby Hooper's like Southern Fried Cannibal movie, Eaten Alive.
Eaten Alive, yeah.
They showed Town That Dreaded Sundown. It was holy hell a lineup. And I walked out of the doors the next day being like, well, I really love horror movies. Holy shit. Oh my God. And I, especially Tenebrae, like, was like a needle in my brain. And I was like, I'm going to go watch every Giallo movie ever made now. This is my thing. Holy shit. And then that warped my brain for the next 10 years.
Well, as it
Hell
does.
yeah. Where did you go to school in Chicago? Where did you go to school in Chicago?
I went to Columbia.
Oh, cool. Okay, awesome.
Yeah. Not the fancy one, the art school.
Yeah, yeah. I went to the University of Chicago for my master's in film. That's why I was like, where? Because I love Chicago, and I did not like, we probably edit this out or not, whatever. I didn't really like University of Chicago, but I found a lot of really awesome horror people in Chicago, so I was glad that I went to get my master's there and found like a huge horror community.
The horror scene in Chicago is fabulous, and
It's
a
so
lot of the
good.
horror people that I know out here in LA, I know because you meet them, and the first thing out of their mouth is, did you ever live in Chicago? And all of a sudden, you never met each other in Chicago, but now, like, I have so many... the people that I met out here in LA, I met on my second day in Los Angeles at a trauma premiere at the Egyptian. And I was just asked to take a photo for some people. And they were like, so where are you from? And I was like, oh, I just came out here from Chicago. Like, it's my second day. And they're like, oh my God, shut up. I lived in Chicago. And that was Lottie Knowles. And sitting next to her was Michael Verratti.
Oh, jeez.
And,
Cool.
and I was like, oh, okay. And
Casual.
And that was the basis of me meeting people in Los Angeles.
Wow.
4 years later.
Wow.
So cool.
Yeah, right?
Wow, what a cool story. I feel like so many people talk about like being a kid, but it sounds like you came into horror much like later in your life, which is really cool. That's awesome.
I was scared shitless as a kid. I could not do it, which is partially why we're here to talk about this, because a lot of movies scared the shit out of me as a kid. Movies that should not have.
Like what?
I had a weird thing with plants for years because of the 1-2 punch of Jumanji and Little Shop of Horrors. But like mostly Jumanji.
Oh my God, yes, those fucking plants.
Because there's those little flowers, and Robin Williams is like, beware of this one and this one. And they're like, but we didn't see that other kind of flower. And then it like tracks in on the fireplace and it opens up and the giant flower. Like, and I was like, oh, fuck no. No.
I barely remember that movie.
I love Jumanji.
No one remembers that big flying vine flower bit from it. Everyone's like, "Oh yeah, the monkeys and the rhinos and all this
That's
stuff."
all
And I'm
I can remember.
That scared the shit out of me.
Wow. So how did you get into your art background? Was it because going to Columbia, or how did that
Partially it
all
really started when I was in high school. I was in a lot of punk bands back in Indiana, and I play bass, and I'm a bit of an asshole on stage, like every bass player is, because we want attention. And, you know, it's not like a very like massive scene in Indiana. It's, you know, it's not New York or Los Angeles, but there's a really like tight knit scene, and there was a lot of shows going on, and there was a lot of stuff to do, and you know, you would need flyers for stuff, and your band would need a cover for the single they were releasing, or for your album cover and stuff like that. And you know, now it's an age of technology, and we had to do social media posts,
right?
You know, and like Facebook and MySpace. And so like I made all that stuff, and I taught myself Photoshop in high school, just like in the computer lab or in my film classes and stuff when I had downtime, just to make album covers and flyers and stuff like that. And like, it was very relaxing for me, and it was fun, and it was something that like I've never really been able to draw or had any like fine art background or skills. And I was like, hey, I kind of like doing this though. And then when I went to college, I, was into like directing and experimental filmmaking and stuff like that. And no one cared about my movies at all. But they were always like, your opening credit sequence was really cool. That title card was awesome. And I was like, okay. They're like, do you want to do the titles for my movie? And I was like, is that a thing? And so that just kind of, I don't know, it was a very back burner thing until I moved out to Los Angeles. And then, I found a place that needed design, that I kind of started working as an editor, but it was a streaming company and they didn't have a graphic designer. And I was like, well, I can make all this stuff look a whole lot better than it is. And I just started doing that full time. And I worked there for about 3 years. And I started to develop my own voice a bit as a designer. And I did, in 2018, I did a year of self-initiated fan posters on my Instagram account, one for every single day of the year, which in hindsight was kind of idiotic because I I didn't sleep, and like I just did those like in my lunch breaks.
Wow. Like your website has like, are they all of them? Because I've noticed your web has a whole bunch of like the posters a day thing. Are all of them on your? That's all of them. And
there's more than 365 because some days I did 2 because I'm stupid.
What is wrong with you?
I don't know. I mean, like when I was starting out, I was like, I did one for like Singing in the Rain, and I was like, ooh, if I change the colors, this could be Umbrellas of Cherbourg. Might as well do 2. And I'm like, you could have stopped. You didn't.
I suppose I understand that, but also like sleep.
I know.
Or not. I mean, like, whatever.
I love sleeping.
Exactly.
I want to do it more
That's the thing,
often.
though. I feel like as long as it's like you love it and it's amazing, then like, whatever.
But I started doing that, and that kind of got me the attention of indie filmmakers who would, want me to do their stuff. And then I also had the portfolio of the work that I did at the company I was working at, which was pretty substantial. And then I got agency freelance offers, and then I got a couple offers here and there. And so for that, and then a myriad of other reasons, I left the company I was working at and went off on my own and kind of started the Sister Hyde banner.
Which I love that icon, by the way.
It's so good.
That was literally just, I like nuns. I have a lot of weird nun paintings in my house, and I like nun films. I don't know. It's not a thing. Don't look into it. And I also really, 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 really am a vampire aficionado in a big way.
Oh my god, me too.
In a big way.
Oh my god.
I mean, my favorite book of all time since I was like in the 3rd grade was Dracula. So,
hi, I love you.
Thank you. So I was like, okay, just like let's do a nun with fangs and some blood, kind of in the the very graphic 70s style that I do a little bit, and then Sister Hyde as a kind of trans horror play on the Hammer film Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde, because I was like, I want people to be able to know that like I do a lot of horror stuff.
Right.
To look at this and be like, oh, we can get her to do horror stuff. And also, like, to get my pronouns right.
Yeah.
Please.
I was like, if they know that from the get-go, things will be a whole lot easier. And then the whole sister thing is a double entendre with the nun thing. So I was like, okay, that kind of works. I think I made up the little icon I made in like an afternoon, like in between projects. I was like, this looks neat. And I sent it to a friend and she was like, cool.
Do you still make t-shirts?
I do occasionally.
I just found them on, and I like the she, her, hers.
Thank you. That's a joke a friend of mine made, and I was like, I'm going to put that on a shirt.
And you're like, thank you, I will take that.
I did a whole bunch of shirt designs last year, but I had problems with my distributor that was like fulfilling orders and stuff, so the shop that I had that was doing that, I've taken down, and I'm probably just going to take them on Society 6 or something eventually, but like, they're all, mostly original shirt designs, so it's not like I'm going to be sued or anything. It's just I've got to find a distributor that can, print on demand easily
Yeah.
and not break down every time someone orders a shirt.
That would be cool.
That would be nice. But yeah, I just did those literally because I wasn't getting any work at a certain point last year. I was like, well, I'll make these. Maybe I can make money off of them. And I didn't.
So you recently announced that you showed the artwork you did for the upcoming Elephant Man Criterion collection, which is so cool.
Oh, thank you.
But the thing that honestly got me so excited is that you are doing the artwork or the DVD cover for the Equation to an Unknown?
Yeah, I did. Oh my god, yes. I did Equation to an Unknown for Altered Innocence for the Blu-ray and the DVD. Which, if you don't know, Equation to an Unknown is a 1970s French gay porn film.
Hell, yes.
Which is sadder than most art house movies you're ever gonna find.
That's what I heard.
Nothing but like longing and glances and casual blowjobs on a motorcycle.
And as one does.
It's so good. It's genuinely like the fact that it's just not widely known as like a French erotic art house film and instead been seen as like a skeezy little like porn film that's been overlooked is a crime.
Yeah.
Jan Gonzalez, the director of Knife Plus Heart, which Altered Innocence put out last year, is a big fan of it, and he kind of sourced it for parts of Knife Plus Heart to kind of give inspiration into that world of 70s French porn filmmaking.
Hell yeah.
Which I love that movie so much.
When they were presenting Knife Plus Heart in some theaters, they would also air it with Equation to an Unknown. And I wish that I mean, I live in Nebraska. Like, it's not coming here.
No,
let's be honest.
What art houses are playing the porn, Terry? Come on.
You've got to start your own gay porn art house in Nebraska. I think that's the mission.
Terry, I'll move to Nebraska and do that with you.
That sounds like the thing I need to start. But I have it pre-ordered because I've been wanting to see it ever since like they announced that this was like the movie that sort of like was partly an inspiration for Knife Plus Heart. I'm like, I gotta see this, and I saw that it was like on Pornhub, and I almost watched it there.
I like that it's on Pornhub.
I think the trailer's on Pornhub.
Oh, was it just the trailer? Okay.
I think it's the trailer because I know Altered Innocence was trying to find like cheeky ways of advertising it.
Oh.
And they're like, what if we drop the trailer on Pornhub? And I was like, that's so fucking stupid. I love it. But yeah, we did that last year because like, it's a French porn film from the 70s. There was like no artwork for it. So they came to me and they're like, we've got some stills. And all you need to know is that it's a sad little art movie about longing. And here's the movie if you want to watch it. So
the most melancholic porn film I've ever seen, according to Jan Gonzalez.
And Jan got it like personally restored, and it looks amazing.
Whoa, fuck yeah!
They restored it in 2K. It looks gorgeous on the Blu-ray, and that should be coming out soon. I know there's been production delays on a lot of discs because of coronavirus. So
I just pre-ordered it, and it said estimated July 14th.
Hey.
Yeah, I've had it pre-ordered for a minute because I just can't wait. I can't wait to see it.
Me on my phone, must buy more things. Buying shirts,
must buy more
buying
porn.
Blu-rays, bringing porn in. Must buy porn for my house. Display it proudly on a shelf. Because it doesn't sound like a porn. It sounds it sounds like an art house French film.
It is, just with,
blowjobs and
unsimulated
motorcycles.
sex.
Sweet. I mean...
Who can ask for anything more?
I was going to say that
honestly. Last year at Marienbad would be a whole lot better if there was some dicks getting sucked.
Yep.
This is a hot take.
There you go. Wow.
I lost my train of thought with that.
I did too. I'm thinking about blowjobs on
thinking about blowjobs on motorcycles now.
Good.
That's all we could ever want.
I love that Elephant Man brought us to that.
I
know, right?
Elephant Man to sucking dicks on motorcycles,
which I've never seen. I've never seen Elephant Man.
I haven't seen the Elephant Man.
I haven't either. I need to.
Oh my God,
it's like one
guys.
of my few David Lynch blind spots because he's one of my favorite directors. So I'm definitely gonna get the Criterion now that you designed it. But
Well, even if I wasn't even involved with it, I would say you need to go see this movie, and get that dish because like the restoration's gorgeous. But on top of that, like, no, it's absolutely an essential and absolutely a classic that I feel like most people should see. And much like Equation to an Unknown, you're gonna need a box of tissues, but for completely different reasons. Because you will be crying for Elephant Man. But I mean, I saw Elephant Man middle school or high school age, and it like broke me down, and I wept and I wept and I wept, and I thought it was so good, and I hadn't really seen any other Lynch stuff at that point. It was just this beautiful period drama that had these amazingly surreal, emotive sequences in it that I just loved. And then at a different point, I changed schools in high school, and I was like super depressed. And I like didn't know how to interact with anybody. And my entire first week at that school, I had, for some reason, rented Elephant Man from the library. And I had it out for a week, and I watched it every single day of that week.
Wow.
Because I would come home from school a little depressed about, like, I don't know anybody at this new school. I don't know how to interact with people. Come home, drop my bag, disc, player, Elephant Man.
Wow.
Like, every single day for a week until I had to give it back. And then, like, by that point, I was more, like, adjusted person and could talk to people and, like, interact at school. And, you know, it wasn't because of the Elephant Man. But
I was going to say, did Elephant Man give you courage?
It's a beautiful movie, and it's very humanist, and it's very, very kind and forgiving, and I don't know, it's like a warm blanket of a movie. It makes me feel good. Everyone's like, oh, you need to watch it, but you're gonna be so sad, it's gonna make you cry so hard, and I'm like, no, it's like having a cup of cocoa near Christmas. It's like, it feels good. I like it.
I have never heard that movie described that way, and it makes me even more excited to watch it.
It's like you're gonna cry. You're gonna cry.
Oh yeah, 100%. But
not like, in like the Disney manufactured like.
Right.
Yes.
Now it is the cry time. It's more like.
Now we're going to start up with the history of this couple and have you bawling.
Yeah, it's like how everyone, at least in my age generation, has seen the movie Click. And you know that you've seen the movie Click because you all cried at the exact same point in the movie Click.
Fuck that movie, though. Like, who?
But no one thinks it's a good movie. Everyone cried at it when they were supposed to, but no one thinks it's a good movie because we all know we were tricked.
We were tricked. And every time I see that movie pop up anywhere, I'm like, that movie, like, I fucking cried at that fucking Adam Sandler movie. Like, are you joking?
Okay,
because of Christopher fucking Walken.
I know.
Since we're talking about that, that for me would be fucking Sweet November.
I don't know it.
I don't know that either.
It had it was Keanu Reeves and Charlize Theron.
Ooh, say no more.
Ooh.
And like they decided to go on a personal relationship for a while, and then stuff happens, and it is. I hate the movie. I think the movie is terrible. But I remember it was the first time I ever bawled in the movie theater because I'm to the point where like I'm laughing that I'm crying about it, because like it's to the point where it's like I cannot believe that I'm crying at this, and it just becomes absurd. Yeah, that was that movie.
Wait,
for
is
me.
this a movie about cancer?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the picture on Letterboxd is Charlize Theron wearing a hat and no hair. Like.
Oh.
Well.
So that's okay. So it is one of those movies. Like,
but they didn't like advertise it as such.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's just like, oh, it's a sweet movie about two people falling in love.
I saw Terms of Endearment for the first time, like, a couple years ago around Mother's Day.
Ooh.
Unintentionally, and I had no clue what it was about.
I've never seen it. I don't even know what it's about.
Oh, good. You'll be in the exact same seat that I was in. Anyway, for the first 90 minutes, it's just a great slice of life, like, drama, and it's really funny, and all the characters are amazing, and, like, Danny DeVito's in it, and John Lithgow, and Jeff Daniels, and, like, at the center of it all, you've got Shirley MacLaine and Jack Nicholson, and it's great, and in the last half hour, you're just crying. You don't see it coming, and then it just hits you over the back of the head, and then you just cry for half an hour, and then it's over. It's so good.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I cried like that when I watched that movie, The Notebook.
Oh, yeah.
I was like...
I didn't see that either.
I haven't either.
You're not missing anything. But
I pretty much know, but like...
As I've been told.
But, like, it was the first, like, I think it was the first, like, romance movie that I watched and I had any conception of, like, relationships. Mind you, I was still very young, but I think I, like, was starting to understand what relationships were, and, like, it made me, at the end, I was like, what? But, like, it's, like, not a good movie. It just, like, it has, again, like, that manufactured, like, Nicholas Sparks sad-ass ending that's gonna make you cry, even though you shouldn't be that emotionally invested in it.
Kind of like how the hardest I've ever cried at a movie ever in my entire life was at Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again.
Fuck, yes. Oh, my God. That is... I mean, but how can you not, though?
I'm not even kidding. Like,
I believe you, because I cried, too.
I saw 8th grade, and I almost cried a little bit at 8th grade, and then I pulled myself together, and I was like, I should go see something light and fun and funny to, like, get over that. And so I, like, turned right back around, got a ticket to Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again, being like, I'm gonna clap to ABBA, and I'm gonna watch A Good Time from a Richard Curtis movie who's never let me down or made me cry. Anyway.
And then you cried the whole time because it's a very emotional movie.
The entire length of Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again. I'm like, yeah, ABBA, I'm singing along, this is the best. And then that fucking church scene comes up.
Yep.
And then I didn't even realize I was crying until, like, I had to, like, wipe my face, and I was like, wow, am I drowning? What? And then, like, by the time I realized what was happening, I couldn't stop crying. And it just kept going. And if you've seen Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again, there's the church scene with that song. And then when it's over, there's, like, a couple more minutes of, like, dialogue and, like, wrap up to the movie. And then it goes into, like, the big end credits, like, we're all gonna sing Super Trooper together. And Super Trooper is my favorite ABBA song, and it's so much fun and upbeat, and I couldn't enjoy it because I was still bawling through Super Trooper. I could not stop.
Were you alone?
I was thankfully alone. I was sitting in, like, one of the first few rows of a really, really big theater, and no one was around me. And so I was like, cool, it's like a Thursday, midday. I'm going to be an asshole and kind of sing along a little bit to myself, and these people can't say shit about it.
I love that.
And then I ended up being the asshole who did that and then loudly cried through the ending.
Are you okay? Like, is everything fine? Like, don't look at me.
Everyone's like, there's a manic, possibly suicidal person in the front row of Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again, and she must be removed.
She is singing and crying, and I'm not sure if she's having a good time.
Did she even buy a ticket? Some say Theater 14 is haunted.
She lurks under the seats.
That theater's been closed for 40 years.
Oh my god. On that note, Terry, do you want to talk about what we've been watching recently?
Yes, I do.
I'm glad we got to talk about Mamma Mia on this podcast finally. I feel like
I've never seen either of them.
Oh,
they're great.
They're so fun. Like, they're just so fun and enjoyable and entertaining and great.
And apparently tear jerking.
Yeah, they do. They do make you cry. They do make you cry.
So in anticipation of the movie that we're going to be talking about today, I watched another kind of proto-slasher called The Severed Arm.
Oh. Is that the one that Veneer Syndrome just put out?
Yes.
Okay, you just posted that yesterday, I think. I saw that.
So it's what I'm trying to do, Drew, is go through, like, my backlog, which is impossible when I start ordering more movies like this one from Vinegar Syndrome. But it is oh my God, this movie is about these 5 friends that are for some reason exploring a mine.
As you do.
Well, okay, so the movie first opens up with a man that is in this morgue, and he picks up a saw and chops off the arm off of a body, and then wraps it up and mails it. And the mailman that delivers it is Angus Scrimm, uncredited role, but his first role in a movie. And he delivers it to this guy who opens up the box, sees it, and falls over. Like, the box falls over and the arm flops out. And he goes to meet his doctor friend, and he's talking to the doctor, and we get the watery fade to, like, flashback scene of them in the mine, going to this mine that collapses, and they get stuck in there, and then they start about a weekend, start talking about cannibalism because they haven't been found yet. And the one guy makes a joke, I don't eat meat on Friday, so we're up to do this tomorrow. It's so weird.
Jesus.
And then 2 weeks later, they finally decide that what they're going to do is randomly pick someone, chop off whatever body part they want to chop off, and then eat it. So they do that, and as soon as they chop off the guy's arm, they hear tick, 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 because someone has obviously, found them, of course, at like the perfect opportunity. And then it's like we're back to 5 years later, and the guy that they chopped the arm off is going around trying to chop off the rest of the people's arms.
Okay, that kind of sounds badass, though. Like, I want to watch that.
It's very slow.
Oh, never
Sounds
mind.
like it.
It's very slow, but like you can see where there are some things in it that are surprising, because it came out in 1973, so it came out a year before Black Christmas, and there are some things in there that you will see eventually in like some of the bigger slashers of that era and beyond. There's a killer point of view shot. There's a man with an axe that's like, in the shadows, drenching in the shadows, and like you see the kind of, they don't show his face, so he's like all cloaked in shadows, and you just see this axe. It kind of has like an attack in a shower that's you can kind of see like glimmers from like Psycho, except it's with it. The interesting thing is that they're all like middle-aged men. Like all the victims are middle-aged men, and that's really boring. Like they're just really boring characters. But like there was one scene that I was like, oh my God, because this guy, one of them is a DJ, and he's on the radio, and he's getting these weird calls from the guy that is stalking them. And so he calls the operator, and the operator's like, sir, the calls, the one you asked us to trace, they're coming from your other line. Whoever is in the building with you. And I'm like, oh my God.
Same ring as the call is coming from inside the house, but they were almost there.
Yeah,
they're
but
working
like
on it.
That's
before,
Black Christmas
and
Stranger Calls. Good
yeah.
God.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, this is a 1973. And I've never heard of this movie until Vinegar Syndrome put it out. And, it's just, yeah, it's like, it's really slow. It's relatively bloodless for a movie about arms getting chopped off. But, it was definitely an interesting movie to watch. Huh. But the other thing I briefly want to talk about is, have you guys watched, from like in 2016, the sitcom, well, I don't even think it's a sitcom, the comedy show Search Party?
Yeah, I saw it when it first came out. I think I saw like most of the first season.
I love this show. I remember watching it in 2016 when it came out, and the first two seasons came out. I was like so deeply in love with it. And then they had filmed a third season, but then nothing like was talked about. Like it just sort of just faded away, even though they had filmed a third season. Well, it's finally coming out, the week that this airs on HBO Max, and it's now an HBO Max show.
Oh, nice.
So I have been rewatching the first season, and I just sort of, I wanted to like remind myself, because it's 2016. Come on, it's been a while. And I just like binged the first season. Like it's so good. It's so funny. And like there's like so many really good lines in it. Like one of the characters is like, the whole premise is that this one kind of self-absorbed lost soul finds like a missing flyer for someone that she knew in college, and she's missing, and she like all of a sudden decides to like insert herself into the family's life and sort of find out where she went to, and she thinks that she's alive. And so she starts like getting her friends involved that are all equally self-absorbed Manhattanites that like sort of just go on this journey, almost like a noir, but not, for like trying to find this person. And I mean, there's like weird cults, there's like odd like baby shows where like there's like a girl that dresses up like and does the whole like baby show for people. It's just so weird and so bizarre, and it's very funny. Like they do this visual. One of the scenes that like just had me rolling is, and it kind of shows the like how out of touch everyone is. This a cappella group that this lady belonged to starts like singing at the vigil, and they're singing "Since You've Been Gone," which is like the most inappropriate song to be singing about someone who's missing.
Wow.
and they're so completely unself-aware that they're, you know, singing a song. It's like that, oh my God, it's Since You've Been Gone, we should be singing that song, you know? It's like that rather than like we're singing about the fact that we're glad you're gone. But it's so good, and I cannot wait for the third season.
Cool.
Yeah. But that's me. What about you, Mary Beth?
So there are two things I want to talk about. First, I finally watched Dracula's Daughter.
Oh yeah.
Which is a beautiful film, and it's like got a lot of gay subtext, lesbian subtext, and it's awesome. It is from 1936, I believe. Basically, it's Dracula's daughter trying to figure out how she can stop being a vampire and how she can stop drinking blood and going to a psychiatrist and trying to figure out how to not give in to her impulses. And it's very fascinating. And the woman who plays Dracula's daughter, her name is Maria Zaleska, Countess Maria Zaleska, Gloria Holden. She is phenomenal. Like, she's so good as the Countess, and it's just it's only 71 minutes long, and it's a beautiful film, and it's a really good example of like queer subtext, but not even that subtextual, but like
it's almost just text.
It really is almost just text.
She seduces that woman.
Like, she seduces like a pretty, like, not long, but like a good chunk of the film is seen where she seduces a woman, and it's really beautiful and obviously violent. But yeah, I'm glad I watched it. BJ Colangelo was talking about it on Twitter, and I was like, okay, well, I should finally watch this goddamn movie, and I'm so glad I did. And then another one I've watched that is actually new, it just came out on Shudder. It's called Warning, Do Not Play.
Oh yeah.
It is a Korean film that it sounds like found footage, and it's kind of, but not really. It is about the act of finding the footage, which is really cool, I think. This young woman is a director. She works for a production company, and they really liked her first film, and now they're pressuring her to write a second one. And like, we gave you all this money for development. Like, come on, you gotta make something. And so she decides to make a film about a haunted movie. It sounds kind of confusing, and it's a little bit confusing because like it gets really meta, and like the layers kind of get tangled up in a way that doesn't always make sense. Okay, I'm back. But yeah, so it gets a little bit convoluted in that a lot of these layers get a little bit messy and a little bit blurring together, but not in a way that I think is always successful. But I think it is a really ambitious, really awesome way of integrating found footage into like a, you know, typical horror narrative. And it's on Shudder, and I really enjoyed it. It's got a really creepy ghost. It feels like it's trying to be similar to like Ringu or Juon from Japan, but it is still really creepy, and I think it's a really interesting look at how found footage can expand. So I really enjoyed it. So it's streaming on Shudder for anyone who wants to check it out.
Yeah, I've been meaning to watch that one. I saw you tweeting about it.
I mean, who knows? It's one of those movies that I feel like most people are going to hate just on like the basis of that it's a lot of found footage in it, but I think it's really cool. So whatever. Drew, what have you been watching?
So mine, or at least the first one, really isn't a horror movie at all or in any way, shape, or form. But like, I am a really, really, really big classic movie fan on top of all of that, and I love Cary Grant, and I've seen most of his movies, but I came across Talk of the Town from 1942 on the Criterion Channel not long ago, and it's on there right now if you want to watch it. It's really good, and it's Cary Grant and Ronald Colman and Jean Arthur, and it's a romantic comedy that's also a bit of a thriller and a bit of a political film, and it's also like supposed to be a like romantic triangle of like they're both in love with Jean Arthur, which guy's gonna get her, but it does not read that way at all. It just comes off as Cary Grant and Ronald Colman falling in love with each other.
Oh, fuck
and
yeah.
it just not even accidentally turns into this really, really, really sweet gay romance.
Wow.
But Cary Grant is like a socialist, pro-union, like soul protester in this small town that is run by a very corrupt business owner and like his political machine. And Cary Grant is like, well, you're skipping on all these codes. You're factory's gonna burn down and someone might die. And then, like, a couple days later, the factory burns down and someone is reported dead in the fire, and so everyone blames Cary Grant for doing it.
Of course.
And he escapes jail and runs out to a little house in the country where Jean Arthur is setting up a B&B for a visiting law professor played by Ronald Colman. And so she has to hide him in the attic, and he convinces her to let him stay there and convince Ronald Colman to stay in the town, hear out his case, and help him prove his innocence. And
so
the
sweet.
entire time, Ronald Colman is this very stuck-up, very East Coast, fairly conservative professor who has no interest in this at all. He doesn't want to get involved, And he's introduced to Cary Grant as the gardener on the property, and they immediately hit it off, and they spend the entire movie in these, like, beautiful conversations with each other by the fire or in the garden, talking about politics and talking about unions, and it's... I'm getting flustered just thinking about it. And it's really beautiful, and it's really cute, and it's really fun. And, like, there's a scene where Ronald Colman and Jean Arthur go into the town, and Ronald Colman wants to stop off to get Cary Grant some borscht, because he just knows that Cary Grant likes borscht. And he's like, just imagine the look on his face when we bring it back to him. I'm like, oh, homos, they in love. These boys.
These boys.
And, like,
see it.
I'm sorry. Maybe I just read every movie this way now, but, like, there's no way in my mind that you can watch that movie at least now and not see this. And I have Vita Russo's The Cellular Closet, and as soon as I finished the movie, I was like, did Vita Russo to write about this? Because I feel like this has to be in here somewhere, and it's not. And I'm like, how? What? Why aren't people talking about this? Like, Cary Grant was bisexual. As far as I know, Ronald Colman was straight, but, like, this is an incredibly queer movie, and it's not even trying to hide it. Like, yeah, wow. Jean Arthur's there in the middle, but no one really shows any affection for her. And she doesn't really end up with either of them at the end of the movie.
Oh, fuck yeah. Wait, I want to watch this. I also didn't know Cary Grant was bisexual.
Oh, Cary Grant was bisexual.
Hell yeah!
When he first moved to America, he had a very long relationship in New York with Australian fashion designer Ori Kelly, who did all the dresses for Some Like It Hot and Auntie Mame.
Whoa.
Wow. And then in the 30s and 40s, when he was out in Hollywood, he had a very long relationship with Randolph Scott, the Western star, and they owned a house together in Palm Springs. There's some great photos of the two of them, like, shirtless on a diving board, hugging. That's just like...
Yep, that sounds
amazing. Boys being boys.
What's
boys being
better than
boys.
this? Guys being dudes.
Boys will do boys. Yeah, no, Talk of the Town is really, really, really sweet, and I want more people to see it. But I also watched a very kind of cult Spanish, I don't know, kind of horror movie? It's very hard to describe. It's called Arrebato, which translates to Rapture. It's a Spanish film from 1979. And it was directed by Ivan Zulueta, who is, I think, most well-known now as a poster designer. He did all the movie posters for, like, Pedro Almodovar's first couple of movies.
Oh, okay.
So he did the poster for Dark Habits of the Tiger Nun and Pepe Lucy Bomb and Other Girls Like Mom. And he also did a lot of the Spanish posters for Buñuel's films.
Cool.
Like Simon the Desert and Viridiana. His posters are amazing, and I've got a couple in my house, and I love him to death. And I finally got to see this, like, cult horror movie that he made called Arrebato, which is about a filmmaker who's making he made a schlocky monster movie, and now he's making his second movie, which is a vampire film. And the movie starts on him in the cutting room going over the end of his vampire movie, and he's talking to his editor, and he says, we need to make it clear that at the end of the movie she's happy that she's a vampire. We need to show that she likes being a vampire, and that's how we end it. And the editor's like, that sounds crazy to me, but I don't know, whatever. And I was like, yes, that's what we want.
That is what we want.
It is exactly
what we want. And the whole movie is about his relationship to this young guy who's a cousin of his producer, who has a very weird fascination with film and capturing himself on film. in relation to a heroin habit that he thinks that if he films himself while getting high, he'll be able to capture that piece of his drug-induced orgasm on celluloid, and it leads down this very surreal Videodrome-esque path.
Sounds wild.
It's a very wild, very fun movie, and there's a sequence near the end where this younger guy that he's been interested in the whole movie just goes cruising, like out of nowhere, like the whole tone of the movie shifts, the whole lighting shifts, and he and this girl are going cruising, and they're wearing like red and black leather, and it feels like a scene out of The Hunger. And all of a sudden, like, this rock music's playing, and they pick this guy up on the street, and they take him into this elevator together, and they all like snort poppers in the elevator, and it's just like,
what?
You're not even. Oh my god, it's so much fun.
Wait, where did you watch it?
It's tough to find. It was released in Europe recently. It's never been released in America. A friend of mine has a European copy of it that he lent me.
Oh, okay.
But there is a new restoration of it that's going to be coming out later this year. Ooh. So I think, we'll all be able to finally experience
it sounds
wild experience it is Arrebato, and I cannot wait for other people to be able to see it and experience it. I'm sure there's versions of it online if you want to be that kind of person, and I'm not being judgmental of that in any way, shape, or form. However, there's a better version coming soon.
Good.
I am told. So
That's exciting.
Either see it now or hold out and have a even better time in a little bit.
Hell yeah.
But I cannot recommend it highly enough. It is wild.
That sounds amazing, and I cannot wait to see it. So we have talked about what we've been watching recently, but let's talk about the film you brought with you today. Drew, what
excited.
are we talking about?
We are talking about Alfred Hitchcock's 1960 horror redefining masterpiece that is currently, today, while we record this, celebrating its 60th anniversary, Psycho.
Psycho! So, Psycho, in case you don't know what it is, I'm sorry, but also, so Secretary Marion Crane, played by Janet Leigh, is on the run after stealing $40,000 from her employer in order to run away with her boyfriend, Sam Loomis. And then she's overcome by exhaustion during a heavy rainstorm. Traveling on the back roads to avoid the police, she stops for the night at the ramshackle Bates Motel and meets the polite but high-strung proprietor Norman Bates, played by Anthony Perkins, a young man with an interest in taxidermy and a difficult relationship with his mother.
Dun, dun, dun. So, how old were you? And set the scene when you first saw this movie, Drew.
Okay, I had to have been... I could not have been more than 8 or 9 years old.
Okay.
I had probably seen Rear Window at this point, I think, because my mom is a giant Hitchcock fan. She loves Rear Window a lot, mostly for Grace Kelly's dresses, also for the murder.
Come for the dresses, stay for the murder.
Absolutely. So I'd seen that at some point when I was homesick from school, and she was like, "Rear Window's on TV, you're watching it with me." But I would go down to Florida every year for the summer to visit my grandparents with my brother, who was 2 years older than me. And sometimes my grandparents would, take us out to rent movies. Sometimes my parents would be down there with us. Sometimes, my uncle would come down to visit. And this one summer, I was 8 or 9 years old. My brother was 10 or 11. My uncle Dean was down in Florida with us, visiting for just the week while we were going to be there for the whole summer. And he's very much the fun uncle. He's the guy who got me into The Who and showed me 70s rock music for the first time. And so he was talking to us one day about how much my grandmother, his mother, is deeply afraid of birds and how he finds it funny that she lives in Florida now with all these seagulls and birds everywhere, and she freaks out. And we were like, why is she afraid of birds? And he's like, oh, because of this movie called The Birds. Oh, wait. You two have never seen The Birds? And we're like, we're children.
I am literally a child.
So he was like, you've never seen The Birds? You've never seen Psycho? And we were like, no.
I'm 8.
We're children. And so he was like, well, tonight we're fixing that. So we drove to the Blockbuster Video in Sarasota, Florida, which is not there anymore.
Rip.
Rip.
And we like walked up and down the aisle, and he like pulled us down to the horror aisle. And like he picked up The Birds, and he picked up Psycho, and there were the old Universal releases with like Hitchcock's profile.
Oh yeah,
on the side.
I remember those.
And so like, and then I saw all the other Hitchcock releases like on the shelf, because they all have his face and like in a different color on them also. And then I was like, The Trouble with Harry and Frenzy, and I'm like, these all have scary titles. Like, oh no, little did I know.
Little did you know.
Yeah. And so he was like, we're going to watch both tonight. We're going back. We're going to go sit in like the little... My grandparents' house in Florida was not big. It's not my father's house in Florida. It's not very big at all. But there's a back room in between a bedroom that is just like... There's a family room, kind of like when you first walk in, but in the back, there's like a little tiny den that fits like a sofa and then like a chair, and then that's it. Okay. And he's like, we're going to wait for your grandparents to go to sleep. You're not telling them about this.
Oh my God.
We're going to wait for the sun to go down. And then I'm going to make a fuck ton of popcorn. And we're going to put on Psycho and The Birds, and we're going to watch these back to back.
Your uncle sounds rad as shit.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And so we were like, okay. And my brother is incredibly macho, like hockey player, football player, like dude, bro, racist, homophobic piece of shit. So
cool.
He was like, I'm not going to be scared of these at all. Like, let's go with the scariest one first. Let's get this going. This is going to be a lot of fun. And I was like, no. Oh God. I don't know. And my uncle was like, okay, cool. So I'll let you two pick which one we're going to watch first. We're either going to watch The Birds, which is in color, and it's about killer birds, or Psycho, which I'm not going to tell you what it's about, just that it's called Psycho, and it's in black and white. And for some reason, and this is kind of still a thing in my brain, I read black and white as scarier.
Oh, interesting. Oh. Okay.
I don't know why. I just think it's scarier and moodier, and especially as a kid, like black and white things, like because it feels foreign, you know.
Yeah,
a color film, like it looks like the world, and so you've got a bit, more of a connection to it. A black and white film, it immediately like has one level of disconnect between the real world and the movie. And that's why, a lot of like Orson Welles and people like that were like, it's more like a dream. Gotta make movies in black and white. And stuff. And so I was like, let's watch The Birds first. Because that's the one that my brother thought was going to be the scariest one, because it scared my grandmother. And I thought it was going to be the least scary one because it was going to be in color. So I was like, okay, cool. Let's watch The Birds. And the sun was still kind of out and setting. I was like, okay, cool. We'll dip into the safe. And then I was like, and then after The Birds, I can go to sleep. And then I won't have to watch this scary fucking Psycho movie.
Oh, I like the logic.
I am a child. Children sleep easily. Got it. And so we put The Birds on, and I was not prepared for the like pace of the movie.
Oh yeah,
I think probably because it's 1961, 1962. It's very slow. There's no score. Bernard Herrmann just made the like screeching sound of the birds, and that's it. It's very different, and Tippi Hedren is not your like normal lead either. Mm-hmm. But I really, really liked it. And the color's gorgeous, the early Technicolor, or late Technicolor,
it's gorgeous. It takes such a fucking turn very quickly.
I've never seen it.
You've never seen The Birds?
Ooh.
No, I've never seen The Birds.
Then I will leave some parts out.
Yeah, but it is...
about the whole killer bird thing and all that twist that there's killer birds and
Yeah,
the birds.
There's
surprise.
killer birds?
The birds.
The
they're
blades,
bad.
they kill us. But for the majority of the birds, I was like tense, but I wasn't scared. The only
Okay.
scene that made me like really scared was the thing with the eyeball. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay. That, I
If
mean,
you know what I'm talking about, like that
sense.
shot is very like, whoa, holy shit. Even for that age and even for that movie. But the rest of it is like kind of fine, and then the ending is depressing.
yeah, the ending is awful. You're just like, oh wow, Jesus Christ. But
You're just like, oof. And so like we watched it, and you know, we ate the popcorn, we had a good time, and then the movie ended, and like I was freaked out, but I was comfortable and I felt safe being freaked out. So it was one of the first times I felt like, oh, okay, all right, I can do this. And so I kind of had that like adrenaline boost of like, ooh, I had fun. That was nice. Okay, maybe I want to do this Psycho movie. Like, if it scares me too much, I can turn away. But I think I'm enjoying this. I think I like this Hitchcock guy. My brother,
Lulls
however,
you into a safe sense of safety.
oh yes, that nice British wit. My brother, however, did not enjoy the birds. He also got freaked out by the eyeball thing, but he didn't enjoy getting freaked out. He was kind of upset that they got the jump on him.
oh boy.
And so he was like, let's take a break in between the movies. Let's like get some ice cream or like, you know, let's see what's in the freezer. Let's see what kind of other snacks we've got. And he like went outside and took a walk for a little bit. And then I was like, can we go to the next movie? Like, we're gonna do Psycho, right? We're doing Psycho next. Yeah? Well, we're gonna put on Psycho. Which Psycho's like a 2-hour long movie.
It is.
yeah,
it's not a short
I did
movie.
not realize that. I started playing like, oh, this is actually kind of long.
Yeah. I always like, in my head, I'm like, yeah, it's like an hour and a half. It's closer to 2 hours.
Yes.
And like the fact that like as a child that young, I had the stamina for a double bill that late.
That's
Kudos.
amazing.
And we finally went back in and popped Psycho in. And I think actually while my brother was outside taking a walk, I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch the trailer for Psycho because it's on the DVD. I popped it in and it was playing that bump ba na 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 like Alfred Hitchcock Presents theme.
Yes.
Just in the room the whole time, and I was like, ooh, this is fun. And so like just the birds alone had kind of flipped the switch in my head of being afraid of this to kind of enjoying it and seeking it out just a little bit. It had like given me that nudge. And so I watched the trailer for Psycho for being like, okay, if the trailer has a bunch of like gore and weird stuff in it, then I'm gonna like check out and be like, nah, let's just go to bed, because I can tell my brother is already like not into this. And so I watched the trailer, which the trailer for that movie is legendary because it's like 6 or 8 minutes long.
Yes.
so long.
It's so
There's
long.
no footage from the movie in it.
No. It's just him walking around the set, isn't it?
It is, and the way that he presents it too, because he's very calmly in his nice British demeanor, walking through the set and saying, "So this is the bathroom, and I couldn't even tell you what happened in here." And you just go, "Oh, what happened in the bathroom?" And then he walks into like, and then he spends the majority of it going through like the Bates house and like turning the lights on, and it reminded me when I was a kid and we'd go to like. I was too afraid and too young to go to haunted houses, but they would have some haunted houses that would do like early in the day walkthroughs.
Oh yeah, with like
With
the lights
the
on and
lights on.
stuff. Yeah.
And so I was like, "Ooh, this is kind of like that. That's fun and interesting." And he like walks and spends the majority of that trailer in the mom's bedroom, being like, "And this was Mrs. Bates slept, and there's like an indentation in the bed." And this is her dressing gown, and it's like kind of like that scene in Rebecca where Mrs. Danvers is walking the new Mrs. Oh God, what's the last name of Rebecca? Anyway, it's like
I
where
can't
Mrs.
remember.
Danvers is walking Joan Fontaine through the house and be like, "Yes, this is where the first Mrs. De Winter slept, and this was her pillow, and this was her nightgown," and it's almost exactly like that of Hitchcock walking you through this room, which you never see in Psycho. They never go in that room in Psycho, ever. That entire elaborate set was only for the fucking trailer.
I love it.
That's crazy.
That bastard. So I was like, oh, okay, this is fun. I know more about this movie a little bit, but I'm still really interested and really intrigued, and I have no clue what to expect. And so we finally all filed back in and sat down, and we turned the movie on, and I think 10 minutes in, my brother like fell asleep. Just completely out like a light. And then it was just my uncle and I sitting on the couch together watching fucking Psycho, and he did not make a peep the entire movie. He was watching me.
Yes.
Oh my god.
And like I had heard the sound before, but I had no clue where it came from, what it was about. And all I knew was the bit in the trailer where he was like, something horrible happened in this bathroom.
Right.
And so the beginning of the movie, it's a heist thriller, kind of.
Yeah.
It's more like a noir movie. It's, there's an illicit meeting of two lovers in a hotel room.
Which, by the way, he is so hot. John Gavin is
shirtless
hot.
eating a sandwich.
Yes, please. In my dreams.
So hot they put him on the poster.
Right? Him and Janet Leigh together, I was like, I like the way this movie looks.
Yeah. And it's like that long like push in from the skyline into that window is great.
It's gorgeous.
And also just like a movie called Psycho, and the trailer is all this like gothic house and this little hotel and stuff. And then it starts like at noon in Phoenix, Arizona.
Right.
In a hotel room with these two people fucking. And I was like, what? Wait, is this the right movie? And then she slyly steals some money from her employer and a weird sexist Texan.
Oh yeah.
What a dick.
And then it becomes like a film noir movie. It's all about
guilt
and stolen money, driving around, and
paranoia.
Like,
the cops following her.
The scariest thing in that whole section of the movie is the cop, which Hitchcock knew what he was on. The man said ACAB back in the 30s.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, when the cop leans into her window and all you see are those sunglasses, those soulless, eyeless sunglasses reflecting back at the, holy shit, that's fucking terrifying.
I was thinking that last night when I was watching it. I was like, Alfred Hitchcock said ACAB. Like he said, like he definitely was like, fuck the cops.
He was terrified of the police his entire life.
Oh.
The police are always awful in his movies for a reason.
True.
This is a story that like he did something wrong when he was a kid, so his mother walked him down to the local police station, told the cops what he did, and they threw him in jail for like a couple hours.
Oh shit, really?
Just like as like a punishment. That like his mom like came up with the police together, and then they let him out and they're like, did you learn your lesson? He was like, yeah, I fucking no, I learned, I'm fine. So he spent his entire life afraid of cops, which healthy.
Yeah.
So that's very strongly in there. And then, she pulls off into the Bates Motel, and the tone just immediately changes as soon as she gets there. There's no more sun, which the entire first half of the movie is marked by. And then there's a gothic house on a hill. And there's a little back office full of taxidermied owls and birds. And Anthony Perkins, saint that he was, little twink that he may be.
Oh, baby twink.
I love Tony so much.
I forgot how attractive he was. He's so handsome in that.
I have never forgotten that. He will always be one of my main crushes. I love Anthony Perkins.
Oh, and then in the scene where like Sam and him are like so close they could be kissing. I was like, just please lean in and kiss. A little bit. Just a little bit.
But he just like even though he's a nice guy, he's the nicest guy you're gonna meet. He is so unnerving. And I just that whole scene where they have dinner together in that back room. And again, 8-year-old kid with, the, mental capacity to watch an episode of SpongeBob, and that's about it. I was like captivated by the whole like private trap thing.
Oh yeah.
The whole first half hour of that 45 minutes really of that movie is like a very slow adult noir film that then goes into like very slow gothic melodrama. And it's like, I don't know how I was like, I get why my brother fell asleep, but at the same time, I kind of like shocked that I was as captivated as I was.
Well, it's so paced really well. Like I could not remember how long the movie was, and when I saw it was 2 hours. I'm like, oh gosh, this is longer than I thought it was going to be. And we don't even see Norman until about 28 minutes in, and it's like I forgot about the whole beginning part that is, like you said, just basically a noir.
Yeah, it feels like a Nick Ray movie. It's weird. And then so the shower scene happened, which was surprising, and it was a jump scare, but it didn't really like shake me all that much as the eye did in the birds. And I was like, whoa. And it was more the like the meticulous cleanup of it after that made me go, we're gonna get into some really creepy shit. Oh god. And I was like, covering my eyes as a kid. But the stuff that sticks out in my head the most is the second half of the movie. That's all from the like investigative point of view, when they hire Martin Balsam as the PI, and then when John Gavin eventually goes to the hotel to investigate it himself with her sister. Those are all the scenes that scared me the most, because that was we're entering the Bates house.
Yes.
Which is the creepy house on the hill we've not seen the inside of. All we have seen is what the people who live there are capable of. And, of course, you see Mrs. Bates in the window, and you hear her voice. And so I was terrified of Mrs. Bates. And just that scene where Martin Balsam goes up the stairs.
Yes.
So painfully slowly.
Yes.
And he's looking around, and he's going up, and the camera's just kind of floating there.
Yes.
And then out of nowhere, we get this, like, mousetrap bird's eye view
I love
of the
that.
landing. And it happens faster than you can even, like, understand what happens. Of someone runs out, stabs him, and then all of a sudden, the rig they do for him falling down the stairs is so unsettling, because he's lurching forward and there's blood on his face.
Yeah.
And the background...
And it takes forever for him.
It's got to be rear screen projection.
Yeah.
But the background is like, it's falling at a weird rhythm that, like, it's I guess it's supposed to be him tripping backwards consistently, but it's got this weird, like, back and forth floating kind of thing to it that it doesn't feel right in any way, shape, or form. And then he finally hits the ground, and it's just incredibly upsetting. And that hit me so much more than the shower scene.
Oh, interesting.
So it's funny that you say that, because I'm having a like deja vu to like my childhood, because I was 8 or 9 when I saw this movie as well. And
oh, nice.
The person that introduced me to it was my babysitter. Her name was Dodie, and she was this older woman, and she knew I liked horror movies. And so she would, like, when I would come over, because we lived in Alaska and my parents worked in a town that was 45 minutes away from where we lived. So like it took a little bit to get, back and forth and whatnot. So like I would be at her house, and she would introduce me to movies. And so she introduced me to Psycho, and I knew nothing about it. And everything that you're saying, it hit me the same way. Like I was unnerved at the shower scene, but it didn't freak me out. But it was the moment that the shot overhead, and all of a sudden, as you said, it happens so quickly, but we see it before he's aware of it, of
this
Norman
doom.
Bates, coming out of the room with the horrible It's the first time that like a jump scare just affected me so much. And it was him falling down the stairs, and then the shot of Norman as his mom, like, over him, and the knife going down twice, and his gurgling.
Yeah.
I turned it off. That's when we stopped watching the movie for me. Like, I could not handle anymore. I was like, I'm done.
that wasn't my limit, because I would like that freaked me out. I had to cover my eyes after he like hit the ground and stuff like that, because I didn't know what was going to happen after. But I still like I was still invested in the mystery.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the movie sets it up so you think you know what's going on, but even through that point of view, you still don't really know what's going on.
No.
So I was still like, okay, that's fucked up, but I need to know why this is happening and who's doing I need to know what's going on. I need to know what's going on. So the thing that finally broke me watching Psycho as a kid was, oh God, who plays the sister?
Vera Miles.
Yes,
Vera.
Thank you. Vera, who's kind of the real star of the movie.
Right.
When Vera Miles goes into the house alone, and John Gavin's left back to kind of distract Anthony Perkins. Oh my God, I was freaking out because I was like, "You're distracting him, but the mom's still in the house. The mom's still in the house. She's gonna get you. She's gonna get you. She's gonna get you." And she's going through the house and she's looking at stuff, and I'm like, every corner she turns, it's gonna be something. It's gonna be something. And then when she finally goes to the fruit cellar, which you've already gotten the really ominous Mrs. Bates voice of "Don't put me in that fruit cellar,"
Right.
which is like, also those scenes freaked me the fuck out.
Yes.
Again, you don't see what's going on. You just like hear them. You hear the voices. Her voice is terrifying. And then you see their shadows through the window occasionally. And just even like, you know, I'm from Indiana, so I know what a cellar is, but I've never really heard the phrase fruit cellar before. Even my relatives who lived on, like, you know, little like farms and stuff like that didn't say stuff. So just even hearing the phrase the fruit cellar made me kind of go like, ooh, like, what do you keep in there? What is that for?
You keep decomposing corpses in there.
Why are you putting your mom in there? Why do they have to hide? No, I don't like this. And so she finally goes downstairs, and I was like, oh, no, don't go in the basement, which is the horror cliches of don't go in the basement. Which I literally just did a record that's going to be coming out soon for a certain horror movie. And for the back of the record jacket, it's a shot of basement stairs for a reason. Oops. She goes down in that basement, and you see Mrs. Bates from across the fruit cellar, and it's, you know, very much that like Blair Witch pose of like sitting in the corner with the back to you. And I mean, in hindsight, I've seen the movie so many more times since then, and I've like, you know, went to film school, so we like blocked stuff out, and I, in my mind, can think back to the sequencing of like, hand goes up, hits the light flashes back and forth. But that's not what I remember. All I remember is that scene just diving into chaos. The light goes everywhere. The mom is spun around, and you're faced with this horrifying skeleton out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And then that scared the shit out of me as a kid. I freaked out when that happened. And then what do you get after that? You immediately then get Anthony Perkins jumping into frame,
shouting
wielding
on
the
Norma
knife
Bates.
with the craziest look in his eyes.
That look.
Seriously, that look though, like.
And he doesn't just show up. He literally jumps into the frame.
Well, he jumps into the frame, and then like this face when the hot boyfriend grabs his like wrist and like twists it, like that anguish on his face is wild. Like that whole
his performance is amazing.
His performance is everything to me, and I will definitely show my ass here and let everyone know that this is the first time I've ever watched this movie because I am a fake horror film fan.
Not anymore. You've seen it.
So I watched it for the first time last night, and I was like, Terry, I have to tell you a secret. This is the first time I've seen Psycho. And he was like, what? And even my partner was like, you have never seen Psycho? I'm like, I know, it's a problem. Anyway, doesn't matter. I finally watched it, and Anthony Perkins, one, did not realize how fucking cute he is. I don't care that I know that he's a gross character, but wow, is he a cutie pie.
Oh, he's so fucking cute.
He's so cute. He just plays like that kind of like high-strung, a little bit nervous, anxious guy so well. Like even the way his like facial expressions and the way he walks and the way he moves, it's so amazing to watch and terrifying. But wow, I was blown away by his performance in this film. Like so good.
The 1-2 punch of that mother reveal and then cutting right back to him. Meanwhile, the light is flashing around the room. It pulls what could have been, you know, a fairly cheap reveal into being something that's just truly nightmarish.
Yeah.
Because that's something that whole movie is very stark. And clean and naturalistic, and then it very slowly tiptoes into that very stylish gothic stuff that Hitchcock is most well known for.
Yeah. Well, in that scene in particular, like it happened, everything happened so quickly that like it doesn't give you a chance to really, okay, she's dead. Oh gosh, now he's dressing up as his mom. Like it doesn't give you time to like process any of that. It's just like boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, it doesn't let your brain get in the way.
Right.
It spent this entire time leading you up to this moment. This is what the movie's invented for, is this little chunk for you to buy into all of this so that you can understand this enough to be scared and to root for a hero, but not enough to be thinking through the scene.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the exposition dump after is
I was
for.
going to say that.
Which
like,
I completely forgot about as well.
Wild-ass exposition dump. But I was going to say, like, unfortunately, I saw this movie knowing the twist, but it's still so effective. Like, even though, like, I cannot even imagine what it would be like to see that movie in the theaters in 1960. Like, what?
When there's an entire Hush campaign around it?
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Like, the Hush campaign is insane, and, like, I think that was one of the first times they didn't let people just come in and out of the theater, because, you know, the theater used to be the thing you can go walk in and out, and there wasn't really, like, a time you're supposed to sit down. But with Psycho, there, like, this was one of the first times it happened, which is fucking phenomenal and cool. And it's just, like, still so shocking even if you know what's going to happen. And it's actually, I feel like, a testament to how well the story is told and paced and created. And man, though, I cannot imagine seeing that movie and not knowing that's coming. Like, it's it's like the payoff is so worth it. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And then, of course, the exposition at the end, which is, oh, by the way, in case you didn't know what just happens, like, let me explain to you.
Here's a white man with a degree to come in and explain it to you.
I know, I was like, oh, okay, I guess you're just gonna, all right. Just in case you guys didn't understand that he was dressing up as his mom, here you go. This is why. But also, like, what?
My favorite part of the exposition dump is that they add on to the body count in the exposition dump.
Oh,
like,
right.
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
he killed his stepdad.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Like, oh, and this happened. And you're like, whoa,
like,
whoa,
and
what?
Aren't there some missing girls that you were, you know, like they keep adding those like little things. It's like, oh.
Guess we should be concerned, huh?
They're like, he's been disturbed his whole life. I'm like, okay. Okay, I guess I'll take your word for it.
And as uncomfortable as that, and like when as a kid seeing that exposition dump, you're kind of like, what? Okay, okay, fine. And then after that, which like I will get into the exposition dump later,
right?
Because that is a goddamn can of worms to unpack.
I was gonna say, like,
is.
do we want to unpack that can of worms? Because I got a lot of feelings about it.
As do I.
When so like I stopped the movie. Like, I told my babysitter Dodie, I was like, no, I can't watch anymore. But like, this is kind of where I started watching sequels. I've talked about this on the podcast before, where it's like, I will watch the sequel because I think that like I can handle it better. And so I went into Psycho 2 not really knowing how Psycho 1.
Oh,
you hadn't finished Psycho when you watched Psycho 2?
That's amazing.
Like the next day, like I couldn't stop thinking about Psycho. And so my Dodie was like, hey, so do you want to watch Psycho 2? I promise it's not as scary. And it wasn't. I was perfectly fine with it. But like, it allowed me to eventually go back and rewatch the first one. But like, I went into Psycho 2 not knowing how the movie was ended. All I knew was that there's this crazy old woman that was like fucking superhero and like killed the guy that like my little brain thought was, okay, well,
gotta save the day.
Right. The girl that I thought was the hero, she dies 48 minutes into the movie. Okay, so this investigator, oh, it's he's an ex-cop. He's going to save the day. No, he's dead too. I'm like, well, fuck, I can't handle this.
There's no like balance. There's no like sense of like, I guess, justice or like right or wrong. And there's nowhere to like anchor yourself.
There's not.
After she dies. There's
can't.
Like, especially like bringing the sister in, you're like,
who's this? Right. I can't I can't think of another movie that is structured like this, where it's like you have a whole totally new set of characters introduced halfway through the movie that we're following, and you don't know who the hero is at that point, because like, again, you think it's the cop gets killed, and then it's amazing to me how that movie has been like structured and not replicated.
It works kind of in a slightly Agatha Christie way, which is very interesting because Alfred Hitchcock like hated whodunits, because he was like, well, once you know who did it, what's the point of watching it again? Fair, but I still watch Boarding Express and all those movies all the time.
Oh yeah.
But it's kind of got that, because you know when you're watching a whodunit or like a giallo film or even a slasher where like a lot of it is like shrouded in I'm gonna guess who the killer is. You're always like, oh, it's her, she's the killer, and then she's the next one to get killed, and you're like, well, I don't know who the killer is now. It's that exact same thing but flipped.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, well, she's the lead. Nope.
Well, and like when you're 8 in the 80s and you're watching this on a VHS tape, you don't have a conception of how long the movie is.
Yeah.
And so like, you know, you're seeing this man go up the stairs, and I had no concept of time. I had no idea that there was still another like 30 minutes to this movie.
Well,
so
it's
I'm
a long
like,
movie, so that kind of feels like it's going to be the climax.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
He's going up the stairs. I'm like, oh, he's going to figure it out. He's going to save the day and everything's going to be solved. And it doesn't happen. And I'm like, okay, I'm done. Because you again have no concept of how this movie is going to play out at that point. And it's just it's amazing. It's amazing to think about it like that.
So when did you finally go back and finish Psycho?
I think it was probably like a month later.
Oh.
But you're
honestly,
still like 8 or 9.
Yes, I was still like 8 or 9.
I was like,
But
I was
at that
waiting to
point-
be like, well, when I was in college, I finally.
No, I think it was like I want to say it was like a few months later. I went back to watch that one after I saw Psycho 2 and was like, okay, I can handle this. We're good. But yeah, I had to have been 8 or 9 when I saw the whole movie too, because it was again with Dodie, and she watched me for like a couple of years only. So
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I freaked out real hard at the basement scene, and my uncle was like, "You good? You good?" As we got into the exposition dump, and I was like, "Is it over?" And he was like, "Almost." Because then after the exposition dump, we get Norman sitting alone in the padded cell because he needs a blanket, and then with the mother's like internal narration on top of that of like, I'm just gonna sit here and I'm gonna be perfect and they're gonna leave me alone. I'm gonna be so good I won't even hurt that fly.
I know.
And then it's such a satisfying ending because Hitchcock knows both when to wrap up the story, when to kick you in the teeth one more time, and when to pull off a punchline, all at the same point with the ending of that. Because in like one long dissolve, we go from Norman's close-up into the dissolve of the mother's skull.
Mother's skull, yes.
For like 2 seconds on top of that makes you go, whoa, wait, what? And then it dissolves to the car being pulled out of the lake.
swamp.
Yes, and then it's just over, and
And
the
then you're
credits
like,
roll.
and the money's
No
in there.
credits.
And then it's over because you don't even get end credits because it's
No.
a 60s film.
Yeah.
The credits were at the front. Those Saul Bass credits, which are gorgeous.
They are.
And then it's just over, and you're just like, wait,
What?
but the money at the end.
But
and
the
it's
money.
Just, you just see Hitchcock behind the camera just laughing like you cared about the
Cackling.
money, you idiot.
Wow.
And it's just, I just remember like being slack-jaw when it finally ended and being like, what? And my uncle was like, yeah, so what'd you think?
Wow.
Wow.
And oh my God, I both loved it and had so much trouble sleeping after that.
Fair.
I can imagine.
And
I
it
do
like,
too.
it just scared the shit out of me in a way that I was like, when I went back up to Indiana and I went to that uncle's house, he has a crickety old cellar for a basement that's like this old ass wooden staircase that was built in like easily the mid 40s, which is falling apart, and it's an unfinished basement that's just
Jeez.
cinder block walls painted white. And he and my father ran a tire company together, so the changing people's tires like out of the garage. This is before the recession when that was a job. And so the basement was just full of like tires everywhere, just stacked up in darkness.
Wow.
And then and then there was like kind of two sections, and it like would go straight back. And then there was like a washing machine and a fridge that's where he kept all of the like soda that I could go get, because all of his beers were in the fridge upstairs. So if I wanted a drink, I would have to go down into this basement. But then there was another room to the right off of the stairs that was also that had even more tires.
Jeez.
That room was referred to as the playroom, which is the most ominous shit in the world. That is some innocent stuff. That he was like, yeah, when we were kids, like, because this house had also been owned by their parents, and so my dad, my uncle, and all their siblings grew up in this house. But like, yeah, when we were kids, they would send us down here to play in this room over here, and I'm like, in this blank, empty cinder block basement, unfinished. This was your quote unquote playroom? With what ghost? And I just like,
wow.
I couldn't go down those stairs anymore after seeing Psycho. I couldn't go down there. It looked entirely too much like the end of Psycho.
Valid, though.
Plus tires.
Plus tires. Can we talk about the final monologue, like the final exposition dump?
Yes.
I want to talk about that, and then I also want to, because you also mentioned that you didn't know many other movies that kind of like did that kind of structure, because I want to talk a movie that literally like is a cover of Psycho.
Oh.
A little bit. Brian De Palma's Dressed to Kill.
Oh,
okay, I have not seen that one.
Okay. I haven't seen
Because-
it, but I'm familiar with it.
Because there's it's the exact same plot and structure, except De Palma like heightens it and adds stuff on top of it. But like it even has the exact same exposition dump.
Really?
And a very similar twist.
Oh.
Which is important. And also it kills off a main character very early into the film, and then follows some other characters that much like Janet Leigh and oh my god, I forgot her, Vera Miles. It's like, oh, it's going from one to one. It's also like we're going from Angie Dickinson to Karen Allen. Okay, blonde to blonde, got it. And then they both have a very similar twist.
Okay.
And then they both have a big exposition dump after, followed by one last kind of stinger. And they also have very iconic shower scenes.
Huh.
Wow.
Dressed to Kill has 2 shower scenes. Both of them feature a character being stabbed. Dressed to Kill is like the best remake of Psycho that you're ever gonna get this side of Gus Van Sant. Like, but it's. So let's talk about the end wrap up monologue to Psycho, and then I can tiptoe into the Dressed to Kill one a little bit, because it's slightly more problematic, even though it's trying to be less.
Okay. Yeah, let's unpack that.
Should we start with the book of Psycho?
I have never read the book either.
I haven't read the book. Apparently it's terrible.
Yeah, I know that they made a lot of changes to it.
Yeah, but the book is based off of the true crime.
Ed Gein, right?
Ed Gein,
Okay,
yeah.
I'm so
Yeah,
excited.
Gein.
I texted Terry and I was like, I can't wait to talk about Ed Gein, because I have a book about Ed Gein and I have a weird thing, not a thing for him, but like a fascination with his story. So I am.
So you have a thing for him.
Yeah, whatever. I hate being that person that's like, I have a thing for a serial killer. I just think his story is really fascinating and fucked up and gross, but whatever.
So would you like to fill us in on the Ed Gein of it all?
The Ed Gein of it all. So Ed Gein was a nice, strange little country boy who had a very, very awful mother, who was very verbally and abusive and controlling, but he was obsessed with his mother, and lots of horrible things happened, and then Ed Gein was left on his own, and Ed Gein started making skin suits and robbing graves, and he didn't actually he murdered people, but a lot of the body parts he had came from graves, because he would grave rob and take body parts. And so when they finally caught him and went into his house, there was a lot of, body parts. He had a belt that had nipples on it. The The usual.
I once saw a list of all the things that was found in his house, and I literally gagged.
It's pretty fucking nasty. It's so fucking nasty, and it's really fucked up. And I think what is just so fascinating about the whole thing is that he was like, everyone thought he was like the town weirdo, and there's like a sweet, kind of stupid guy. And they would always be like, oh, that's just Ed Gein being Ed Gein. And he was just, but he was actually just like had a collection of body parts in his house. All stemming from the fact that his mother like absolutely treated him like shit. And she had a weird thing about masturbating. And it was like very, very weird psychosexual relationship with his mother. And
was she still alive at this point?
No, she died.
Okay.
She passed away.
She died of natural causes.
She did, actually. She passed away of natural causes, and they think that he killed his brother, but that isn't proved, but he probably killed his brother. And he was left on his own, and he kind of like started falling apart without his mom, basically. Like, she wasn't there to kind of tell him what to do all the time and order him around, and so he kind of fell into the art of skinning corpses and stuff.
Which stemmed from him wanting to keep his mother around.
Yes.
And preserving her. So
yeah, because a lot of the people he killed / grave robbed from were also like older women that were his mom's age and like similar size, because he wanted to have parts of his mother.
The idea being that he was so traumatized by his mother that he couldn't let go of her following her death, that her death was more traumatizing than the pain she inflicted on him his whole life, and so he weirdly tried to keep her alive by literally like keeping her corpse around and doing what he could to keep it fresh.
Oh my God.
And then making a skin suit so that he could. And this is the trouble with this is that people have made so many movies inspired by Ed Gein.
Oh yeah,
Psycho, Texas Chainsaw Massacre,
Silence of the Lambs,
and all of these have one thing in common. Which is a very, 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 very problematic representation of transgender people.
Wow. Yep. Really bad.
Hey,
it's almost like they completely misunderstood Ed Gein's story and wanted to make trans people look terrible and didn't even think about the implications or the fact that Ed Gein was not. I don't believe. Okay, and please correct me if I'm wrong. I don't believe he was trans. He wasn't trans, so I don't understand like how that became whatever. Anyway,
people didn't understand because the two things that were commonly taken from this was that this was a thing that he did for like a sexual pleasure or something like that. No. Or that this was a thing of an identity of him. No. Or that this was a multiple personality or an early example of DID. No.
Yes.
And so that's what we see cropping up in these movies.
Right.
The most. Because that's kind of the Hollywood thing to do, is to just skim the surface.
Use shorthand, and like, so we're just going to use that as our starting point.
Yeah, it's more of a trauma echo than it is any of these more sensationalized things at the time. So what Psycho does is Psycho somehow gets off a lot cleaner than Silence of the Lambs or Dress to Kill does, or even Texas Chainsaw Massacre, by saying that, well, Norman has a split personality.
Right.
And once Norman killed his mother, he manifested a new personality, that of his mother. So the mother would put on the mother's clothing and walk around the house and speaking in the mother's voice, and then enact these crimes of jealousy whenever Norman was interested in a woman, which then made the mother jealous and protective of her son, and then Norman would kill. And it's like, well, okay, first of all, multiple personality disorder is a movie invention.
Yes,
right.
It sure fucking is.
The medical definition is DID, which is dissociative identity disorder, and on top of that, most therapists and scholars don't think it's real.
Right.
It's like there's like 0.03% of cases of this in the world, and even among that, a lot of people are skeptical. So for every United States of Terra, it's just like not really.
Yeah.
So that, and then that's kind of the way that Psycho plays it off that this was a personality, and that's why he did this horrible thing of killing these people and dressing up in women's clothing. And then, you know, the idea that, well, that now the mother personality is locked in at the end, and he's stuck with the mother brain.
Yes.
Until Psycho 2.
Yes, and that was something I was just like, I was yelling about this earlier today to my partner. I was just like, I don't understand how Ed Gein became like the inspiration for these like really awful like movies about trans people that make trans people look like murderous psychopaths when that's not true, and also misunderstands what being trans is. But then again, I feel like these are such like, I feel like trans representation is not great in horror, like to put it mildly. Right. And it feels like all of these representations of like even like remotely like the trans like what people seem to think is the trans experience, which is not the case, is like violence and mental illness. And it just like is so I knew what Psycho was, but then seeing it I was like, I really don't like how this really feels like it sets a tone for a horror for a very long time about like mental illness really and villainy and like excuses and making it seem like that makes you a bad person. And it just leaves a very bad taste in my mouth. And it's just very weird to me that it really did set that tone for horror for a long time.
Here's the interesting thing. Psycho epitomized what we now refer to as the man in the dress killer.
Yeah.
Which is the idea of the trans killer or the like the queer killer in that definition. And if you go back and try to find examples of that before Psycho, there's only one movie that did that.
Oh, really?
And it's a movie from 1930 called Murder, directed by Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh!
In which the killer is a transvestite.
Really?
Wow.
Yes. Which is the first ever on-screen appearance of a quote-unquote man in a dress killer.
Wow,
really?
I did not know that.
Which only makes Psycho more fucked up, in my opinion. And if you also look back at the like catalog of Hitchcock movies, he famously presents queer villains in a way that like a lot of queer people like attach to and like, which I mean I do too.
Yeah.
But also in a way that's a little like unsettling because it's always kind of like, well, it's the othered character that is the villain. If you want to think about the couple in Rope that kill their friend because they can, or the very obsessive stalker and killer in Strangers on a Train. Or the deeply obsessive lesbian Mrs. Danvers in Rebecca. Or the implied homosexual Peter Lorre in The Man Who Knew Too Much, the 1933 version.
What I'm realizing is that I am not familiar with Hitchcock's work.
Yeah, I'm woefully uneducated.
I think I've only ever seen Psycho.
Ooh, there's so many good ones to watch. They're all so good. I guess the birds are gay in The Birds too now.
Oh my god!
If all of his villains are gay, I guess there's some gay birds.
I've seen North by Northwest. I take it back. I have seen that one,
which also has gay villains.
The birds are gay.
James Mason and is it Leonard Nimoy? No, it's not Leonard Nimoy. It's oh god. He won the Oscar for playing Bela Lugosi in Ed Wood.
Oh yeah.
He passed away a couple years ago.
He did. Martin
Landau and James Mason are the villains in North by Northwest, and it's heavily implied that they're a couple, or at the very least that Landau is infatuated with James Mason.
That's another movie I don't think I've seen since I was maybe 8 or 9.
So good. Which, you know, the irony of that being Cary Grant was the gay one in real life.
Right.
So not only does Hitchcock have this tradition of the queer character in a large majority of his movies, but on top of that, them being presented as the villain and as the killer, or as the unstable one, and he literally being the man who invented the man in the dress killer trope. Of course, that's probably the thing that he saw in Psycho and was like, oh, people will find this shocking.
Right.
That's absolutely the purpose of the use in that movie, and that's why it's used that way in that basement scene, and that's why that basement scene hit me so hard as a kid. It's because not only are you presenting a man in woman's clothes, what a world. But on top of that, it's presented in the most unsettling way possible. The light flashing, you've just seen this corpse, and he's wearing like a loose-fitting sundress.
Yeah.
It's not flattering to Anthony Perkins in any way.
No.
With this loose-fitting wig on top of his head, manic look in his eye, and a knife in his hand. So you are reading an image which you are, in theory, as a 1960s audience or as a child, unfamiliar with in the world. An image that runs contrary to, quote-unquote, your idea of gender and of societal stabilization. And then after that's been upended, just immediately shocked by that, it's immediately associated with a dead body, a jarring flashing light, a murderous glint in the eye, and a fucking knife.
Yeah.
And it's then explained as, this is a mental illness. Do you see this image of a person? This is a mental illness. I am White Doctor Man at end of movie.
Yeah.
And this was like the biggest movie of the year. And like everyone saw Psycho. Yeah. Everyone saw Psycho. And it was after Psycho that the Man in the Dress killer and that the gender swap killer became a really big thing.
Yeah.
I mean, William Castle's Homicidal came out the next year, which kind of flipped on its head of the like drag king killer, which I love that movie. And then obviously Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde from Hammer in the 70s, and it just like it really became its own thing for a while. And then the problem of Brian De Palma's Dress to Kill, which you two haven't seen.
I mean, I'm assuming that there is a reveal that the killer
it's a male character presenting female, and the guys to commit these acts of violence, they literally dress to kill.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Yup.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
He's creative. I love the movie. I have the fucking one sheet in my bedroom. Anyway, it's very problematic.
It's still important to understand, but like, you know, we can still love these movies and also realize, actually, that's very important. That like, you can still love these things as long as you acknowledge that they are problematic. It's okay, guys.
Listen, I named my design brand after an incredibly problematic movie.
Right.
But I still love Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde, and there's so many elements in that movie that I feel are more liberating than most trans things that came out ever. However, and Dress to Kill has a trans individual in it. Like, there's, in the middle of the movie, there's like a quadruple split screen part where Nancy Allen and Michael Caine are both watching a Donahue episode where Donahue is interviewing a trans woman. But it is very 80s, 90s talk show.
Yep.
If you get what I mean, in that very exploitative way of like, so you think you're a woman? Why is that?
Invasive questions.
That kind of tone.
Yes.
And she's this very kind woman, and she's like explaining like, I was a Marine, I was a scuba diver, I jumped out of airplanes, I did all this stuff, and I was quote unquote macho, but like this is who I am, and this is my life. And so midway through the movie, before we're even anywhere to the twist, the characters are watching a trans woman on TV bearing her soul.
Yeah.
And trying to be very earnest. And apparently this is the broadcast that inspired De Palma to make this movie. And I'll get into that in a second.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And so you get the reveal and the big climactic violent set piece. And then you get the exact same Psycho exposition dump at the end, which is blocked the same way, where we're all back at the police station, we're all sitting down, and then there's a doctor character that no one's ever met before, and he's going to tell you what's going on. And the doctor character explains that in Dress to Kill, this character is transgender, and that because the male part of their psyche couldn't reckon with this, that they had a mental break and they developed a split personality based down gender lines. And that the female presentating version was going to see a therapist to get, a recommendation for gender reassignment surgery. This is where we get into the really, really problematic stuff.
Wow.
And when the male half found out about this, retaliated, and that whereas Mrs. Bates would kill out of jealousy to protect her son, the female half in Dressed to Kill would murder whenever the male half was aroused out of a dysphoric erection sensation.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Wow.
Yup.
Oh,
Wow.
boy. That's a problem.
So the entire movie is based around the genitalia of the trans killer.
Cool.
And it explicitly states that this character is trans, which is the big difference from Psycho. Psycho is, this character is DID, has multiple personality disorder, and that's why this weird thing happens. Meanwhile, in Dressed to Kill, it's like, this person's trans, which made them have a multiple personality, which made them kill. Because of genital dysphoria and all of this stuff. And I'm just like...
Wow.
Oof. And so the thing that Brian De Palma said in, 2015 on the re-release disc of Dressed to Kill, and, new interview that he did, he was talking about the Donahue thing that inspired it, and he mentions watching that Donahue episode and seeing this woman on TV and being like, what an interesting concept of a life to lead. That's kind of like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of thing of having two people in your body. And I'm like, no, it's not.
No!
Wow.
Guys, no!
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's not that at all.
Wow.
That ain't it, Chief.
Oh, honey, you got it so wrong.
The only upside to that is right after that disgusting exposition dump, which makes me want to vomit and then, I'm not going to say kill someone because I don't want to be that stereotype. You then get Nancy Allen having, a calm, nice lunch with one of the other characters, calmly explaining step by step what gender reassignment surgery is and what transition is like. And it's played for a joke.
Wow.
Because they're out to lunch at this very fancy restaurant, and behind them is a table of old women. And because De Palma loves split screen and split diopters,
Yes.
He sure does.
behind Nancy Allen in a split diopter shot, you can see an old lady getting visibly flustered and disgusted
Good God.
at this, as Nancy Allen describes what going on hormone replacement therapy is like. And how that affects breast tissue and how that affects skin, and this is, granted, it's pretty well researched. This isn't incorrect. And then goes into the description of gender reassignment surgery in fairly graphic detail, while we are meant to watch this old woman in disgust and laugh.
Wow.
Yup.
Wow.
And then there's another murder set piece.
Shit.
I don't know what to say. Other than, I do want to see this movie now, just as,
Oh, here's the other thing. It's gorgeous.
that's the thing, and that's what's
His
so
movies are
interesting to me about
gorgeous.
especially this, and I also think of Silence of the Lambs, these movies that are so good and beautiful, done by these
Silence of the Lambs won Best Fucking
Right?
Picture
Yeah.
as a horror
it's
movie.
a fucking horror movie, and
And it's directed by Jonathan Demme, who made Philadelphia.
Right.
yeah, what? And it's just so fascinating. These movies are revered as being these amazing pieces of horror, thriller, or whatever. But it's also at their core, they're deeply upsetting and problematic. And in watching them now, you're well, even then, perhaps
Yeah.
this is not the way you should be talking about other human beings. But all right, and
And the thing is, I saw Psycho, 8 or 9 years old, which is after the point that I had started back in my mind, gender questioning things.
Yeah.
yeah,
At a very young age, not even really knowing why that was a question. Just being this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And then Psycho immediately is look at this terrifying mental illness that is bad and is not good. And I was like, whoa, that's only fucked up, huh? don't want to be like that guy.
Oh, God.
And then kind of had that running in the back of my head for years.
Oh, my God.
And then, well, by the time I was in high school, it was very much more of a thing where, like, I had, like, plenty of time to, like, sit and, like, gestate in the back of my brain. And I was like, oh, okay, like, this is probably a thing. I don't know if it's a thing that I'll be able to do in my life. Maybe it's just going to be this thing I think about all the time and, like, wish... But I doubt I can translate it. I doubt this is a thing. I live in central Indiana, and, like, there's no way this is going to be a thing. And then I saw Dress to Kill in high school, and I was like, nope. Yikes. Is that... Oh, well, I'm not like that, so that can't be it.
You're making me think about... I mean, when even my experience, being a closeted kid in, like... up until 2011, just seeing all the representations of what queerness would do to you, whether it was in film or whether, I mean, I was growing up, I was coming into my teen years in the aftermath and in the current, like, AIDS epidemic. So, like, everywhere around me, I'm seeing what my potential future could be. And it was terrifying at that time. And I think that's part of the reason that I was so afraid of coming out of the closet, because all I had for representation was the queer villain or the queer coded characters, or the fact that everyone, even Philadelphia, or everyone's going to die from AIDS. Like, this is the only thing that I saw coming up. And it just kind of, it makes me realize just how important seeing positive representations of you are in movies.
Yeah.
I didn't see a positive trans character on screen until Sense8.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, yeah.
On Netflix,
Sense8.
which was 2014.
Yes.
Right.
2016.
Right.
And literally the power of representation, it was, I watched Sense8 on Netflix, starring Jamie Clayton, who is a trans woman,
wonderful.
and a, like, positive, loving relationship with a lesbian, and a show written by the Wachowski sisters, directed by the Wachowski sisters, and it was at that point that I finally, like, was given the push in my brain of, no, this is okay, you can do this, people do this, they are loved, and they lead lives. And that's the thing, because I had seen Psycho and Dress to Kill and Silence of the Lambs and these trans kids being dragged on Oprah, like, during the day, and just being like, fuck no, I'm not like that, I don't want that. And then it took one episode of Sense8 to, like, hit me over the head, and I was like, wait, never mind. That's like, had I had that, like, when I was a teenager, shit would be much different.
Exactly.
Oh, I know.
Shit would be so much. I remember as 7th grade, probably, maybe 8th grade, in middle school, friends and I, like, got together on Halloween, and it was the first year that we weren't going to be trick-or-treating. We were going to be teenagers doing teenager shit, which was watching horror movies in a basement. And we watched Silence of the Lambs. And, like, I had seen it before. My dad loves that movie. He loves Hannibal. He's talked about those movies since I was a kid, so I saw those at a pretty young age. And I enjoyed them, and so they were like, yeah, we're going to watch Silence of the Lambs. I was like, yeah, cool, awesome. And I was with 2 of my friends that were a couple, and then another friend that was, like, kind of the bitchy mean girl of the group, and we were, like, halfway through Silence of the Lambs, and probably the Goodbye Horses scene. I don't know. I think so. And this girl just turns to, like, everyone on the couch and is just like, I bet Drew wishes they had boobs. And I was just like, what? What? Just, like, small ones that you could play with on your own, so that no one would know. You could have your own little secret, like that fucker. And I was like, what?
Wow.
What? And I literally just, like, got so upset I left and I walked home.
I mean, yeah.
I was just like, holy shit. Like, can people see through me that easily? Like,
wow.
What? And I freaked out. I You know, I think I tried to call my mom to pick me up, but I just wasn't able to for some reason. I walked home and like fucking cried, and then watched Night of the Living Dead on TCM.
I mean, a good end to the night, but also what the shit? That is...
Yeah, and that stuck with
Yes!
me my entire life.
And all because of Silence of the Lambs. Like...
And it was both of those things added together. If it was just like her in the lunchroom saying that, I'd be like, whatever, shut up. But like both of those together at the same time, that deep into that movie,
right?
Man, and like in that kind of like in someone's basement on a couch, like just
it's very intimate.
Like, it's very intimate, and it's like that's that kind of like personal, like, where did you pull that from?
Right.
Are you fucking kidding me?
But again, it feels like someone can see through you, and you're just like, oh, you have revealed like the deepest part of myself that I'm barely like acknowledging, and you have just revealed it to our friends, and I would like to disappear.
I would like to crawl in a hole and die.
Run away. Thank you. Goodbye.
Yeah, like
wow.
I don't know, man. Like I can only imagine what things would be like if that hadn't happened. Like if we had watched Blackenstein instead. Yeah. That was the other offering that night, was Blackenstein.
Wow, that's a very interesting range.
Yeah, it is. I was thinking that.
I don't know where. I feel like they got those from the dollar bin in Walmart, but I'm like, when was Blackenstein in the dollar bin in Walmart?
When was that around? And like, so whenever people are like, it's just horror movies, that's when I get so fucking mad. Like, it's not just horror. Like, horror means so much to people, and it is political, and it is important, and like, seeing yourself on screen in a genre that you love is important in a positive way. And like, y'all who are listening, don't ever say it's not political. I'm giving you as a lecture.
I can't even see you, but your eyes are already boring into the back of my head.
I'm pointing at my screen very aggressively.
I was going to say, I can see the finger pointing.
Do we want to wrap up? Do you want to give us a rating?
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about Psycho, and I'm obsessed with Psycho now, and I'm excited I finally saw it. So we should probably give it a rating. Terry, how many sinister glasses of milk out of 5 do we give Psycho? Or do you give Psycho?
You know, it's 5. I mean, I think this movie is it holds up, problematic or not. I mean, there's so many movies that, like, even though they have problematic gay characters or whatever, I can still appreciate. And this movie, just even watching it as an adult, which I don't think I've seen it since I was a kid, it's still just, the way it's structured just continually surprises, and it even still like got me so like a knot in my stomach whenever all the big set pieces were about ready to happen. I think it's a landmark film. I think it's a masterpiece of tension, and I love it. What about you, Mary Beth?
I think it's also 5 sinister glasses of milk out of 5 for me, and this is like a first time watch for me, and I, going in was expecting to just be like, oh, I know what happens, which is a shitty way to go into a movie, but I was like, well, I know the twist. But what I wasn't expecting, I knew how beautiful it was, but really experiencing it for the first time, it is like so gorgeously edited. The music is amazing. The performances, like, it all just comes together in this like amazing package that does not feel like it's almost 2 hours, and it really does like show how much influence and genius Hitchcock has. And while I'm disappointed that some parts of Hitchcock were adapted into further in the horror genre, I am glad that a lot of what he has done has had such a lasting impact on the slasher. And so, like we said, we acknowledge it's problematic, and we know it's not, like, there's a lot of issues, but we can't deny just how important this movie is, especially in like the history of horror. Drew, you have the final say. How many sinister glasses of milk out of 5 do you give Psycho?
For all of its problematic qualities and for its Titan legacy, I can only give Psycho 5 out of 5 sinister glasses of milk. It's honestly a perfect film. Like, the editing, the execution, the acting, Tony Curtis is not Tony Perkins is both of them. I'm in love with both of them. Tony Perkins' smoldering eyes. It does so much for me, and every time I watch it, I'm drawn straight in, and it plays me like a fiddle, even though I've seen it so many times, and even though, we've gotten so many riffs on it in the past, it literally is the reason we have horror movies now the way we do, for better or worse.
Yeah.
And like, yes, there's problems with it. There's problems with most every movie, but talking about those problems and fleshing those out are so enjoyable and so productive and enriching, both to like me as a person and like as a community.
Can you guys not hear me?
And we shouldn't be afraid of having those conversations. We shouldn't be afraid of like saying this is an issue, but this movie is so good and let's watch it and talk about it. I want people to watch. I want you to watch Psycho. I want you to watch Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde. I want you to watch Dressed to Kill. But I want you to also engage with why that's a problem.
Yeah.
And I want you to engage with what's good about it, and I want you to engage with how can it be better so that we can make those better movies.
Perfect.
Yep. And there it goes.
And there you go. There's one thing I wanted to do a shout out because this made me really laugh when I put out there a call about responses to this movie at Lauren Ladley. And I meant to bring this up earlier, but we just went on so many different journeys. But she said that she walked in on her dad showering because he didn't draw the curtain because of this movie. He freaked, she freaked, and this movie was the reason why. So that she said that, so when I was sneaky and watched it one night, and then mom figured it out later when she knocked on the bathroom door, and I screamed, throwing shampoo and crying, and then dad caught hell. And I just think that is so funny because I know so many people that were afraid of showers after this movie and shower curtains. But
that's why I take baths.
Hell yeah.
All the baths just fucking rule.
They do.
That's been like my quarantine treat is taking baths almost every night. It's just like and watching a horror movie. I don't give a shit. It's making me happy. It's like my little oasis during this absolute horror show of 2020. So
well, thank you so much, Drew, for joining us to talk about Psycho. Where can our listeners find your work and you, and what do you have coming up you'd like to share?
Thank you so much for having me on. I love you guys so much, and it's such a joy to talk about like both dumb shit and like these really important stuff at the same time.
This podcast rules. All we do is talk about dumb shit and then really cool stuff. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's a perfect sandwich. What a combination. You can find my art and get in contact with me about that kind of stuff over at my website, which is sisterhydedesign.com, and see all of that there. And you can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at Hyde Sister, just little inverts of that. I'm really active because I've got no life. So you can probably get in contact with me. I'm just there. And then, the 100th episode of Dead for Filth is out now, featuring some lovely guests from some lovely horror podcasts, including someone that we might know. And the new release of The Elephant Man from the Criterion Collection drops September 29th, featuring my new artwork, Inside and Out, which I recommend you go pick up. And then we have a record with Mondo coming out soon that I don't think I can talk about, but it's with Mondo.
Cool.
So
awesome.
If you follow me on social, you'll find out more about that soon, or maybe well before this podcast even comes out. Who knows?
So, listeners, you have heard from us, but now we want to hear from you. What was your experience with Psycho? You can send us an email at scarredforlifepodcast@gmail.com or reach out to us directly on Twitter. I am at MB McAndrews.
And I'm at Gailey Dreadful.
And of course, keep the conversation going by chatting with us on Twitter and following the podcast at Scarred Podcast.
And please don't forget to review, rate, and subscribe.
Thank you to Steve Barnold for our artwork. Thank you to Sean Keller for our amazing music. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please stay safe out there, but more importantly, stay creepy.
And until next time.
Won't somebody please think of the children? Won't somebody please think of the children? Somebody please think of the children!
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is the briefing room? It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system. If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served. Hi, I'm Detective Dave. I'm Detective Dan. Together, we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood. So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished. From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th. We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.